This is the Show Up Show, helping coaches, service providers, leaders, and entrepreneurs to master showing up to build their brand, authority, and grow their business. Whether it's showing up on social media, in front of an audience, on a live interview, or an actual stage, this podcast is going to help you overcome visibility fear to confidently brand yourself as the authority in your industry. I'm Joanne Chan, aka the Confidence and Visibility Queen, and I am on a mission to share how I went from a nobody to the confident leader I am today, what I have learned, and what I have done to build my brand and business from scratch, and help you do the same so that you can make an impact in the world with the meaningful work that you do. Whether you are new to the business world or feeling unsure about public visibility, or you want to be seen and heard in a way that doesn't feel icky but authentic to you, you will discover how to become visible in your own unique way and show up as the confident entrepreneur you have always dreamed about becoming. Now, it's time to get you show up and be confidently visible so you can easily attract more clients and opportunities for yourself. Our guest today is a seasoned media expert with over 2,600 interviews from articles in Authority Magazine, BuzzFeed, and Her Inc. magazine column, and from her multiple top-ranked videocasts and podcasts like The Binge Factor and Fit Your Brand, one of CIO's top 26 entrepreneur podcasts. As a CEO and co-founder of Podetize, she brings diverse views from what works and what doesn't work in marketing and media from thought leaders and industry icons, redefining success around the globe. Her unique gift to the podcasting, marketing, and branding world is being able to identify the unique binge-able factor, the thing that makes people come back for more again and again, and listen actively and share as real raving fans and buy everything that you have to sell. Wouldn't you want that? So guys, help me welcoming the binge-worthy Tracy Hazzard. Welcome to the show.
Joanne, thank you so much for having me. I just love that introduction, the way you did it. Thank you.
I love your introduction. I love reading your bio. So, okay, let's talk about podcasts, right? So your podcast, The Binge Factor. Actually, how long have you been podcasting? I'm just curious.
So I've been podcasting since 2014.
Wow.
Quite a while. Yeah. And my first podcast was on 3D printing. So it's really geeky and niche. And then branching out into much more innovation marketing. And I think I've done 7 shows total now.
Wow. And how many shows are you running right now? Are still active?
I run 2 very actively, and I'm about to start a 3rd. Every single year I start a new show.
Okay, why is that?
Because marketing's difficult every year. It changes. Like this year, I think direct messaging is much more difficult than it was a year ago. So can I test out these strategies? Can I do things? And will it work the same way that it worked a year ago? So I need to make sure that I update my advice for all the people that I talk to every single day and all the clients that I have. I have to make sure that I'm updated. So starting a new podcast and being in it with them is the best path I found to do that. So that's why I do it, but I don't always keep them. Sometimes they're an experiment and I end them after the year, or sometimes I do a limited series and then I end them. So that's why I don't have 7 active ones right now. But in total, I have done well over 3,000 episodes across all the shows.
What is very interesting, I talk to so many podcasters out there, and even for myself, I always tell my listeners, consistency is key to success. Because there's so many podcasts out there and they are not really active anymore, right? And because they publish like 3 episodes and because it's hard, a lot of work, they don't see results right away, so they quit as a podcaster. So hearing from what you just said, it's like it can be an experiment, right? To test out your strategies so actually it's okay to pod fade, right? That is the term, right?
I think you want to, if you're going to pod fade up, like you're going to do something else with what you learned. And that's the problem. Too often we pod fade. And the reason the term is called pod fading is because I didn't tell my audience I was going to stop. I just got overwhelmed. I didn't keep recording. And I kept saying, I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to get back to it. And then 3 months have gone by and I didn't get back to it. And I didn't tell anyone I quit. Like, it's okay if I end cap and I say, I did 650 episodes of my 3D print podcast. I think I'm done. Like, I'm good and done
Wow.
with that one. That's okay. You can do that. That's not quitting. That is saying I put out a big body of work and now I'm moving on to something else. You can do that. Or you could do a limited series and say, I'm going to do 25 episodes. And if I love it and it really works, I'll do more. But those that do less than 25 episodes aren't giving it enough of a chance. And so often I see people out there who sell a consulting package or this idea that you can just do 10 episodes or something like that. It's really not the time that you're going to invest in doing it and doing it well. You're not going to get a sense of the feedback loop and whether or not it's working for you unless you hit 25 episodes or more.
Right. So, okay, what would you say is key to success in podcasting? Like, how do you make a show so successful and growing and attracting listeners? What would be the secret to success in podcasting?
I think the secret to success is that it's matched to your intention and your strategy. And if it's not, it will never work. That's why you're going to pod fade. If it fits with the intention of what you want to put out in the world from a messaging standpoint or from the beauty that you want to add, the joy that you want to add to the world, right? If you have that intention and the podcast fits that, then you're going to be okay. You'll find ways to make the hard parts work. You'll figure it out because it's worth doing. So to
Mhm.
me, that's the most important thing. But if you're doing it for your business and it's not aligned with your business or it's not aligned with the type of clients you want to attract, the audience that you want to build, if it's not aligned there, it will never work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting because that is actually why I started my second podcast. Because my first podcast, on this journey, like your first episode, your first podcast was about 3D printing, right? It's totally different from what you do today. And 3 years ago, when I started my first podcast, I am not doing what I'm doing today. And which is fine, right? We all change our niche and we all figure things out along the way. It's an entrepreneurship journey. So when I first started my podcast, it was about, like I said, everything. It was about joy, and things like that. And it's okay. And I still keep it. I still love talking about everything about life, and spirituality. But at some point in time, I realized I'm not really serving my clients because I really want to help entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs. And so I started my second podcast that just focus on marketing strategy, which is why I have two shows. Basically, that's the reason. But I love it. It's okay, right? I have different group of people listening to different shows. Your podcast is all about the binge factor. And how do we keep listeners hooked? Whether it's a video, YouTube channel, or what do you call that, like blog posts. I don't know, like not just audio podcast, not just podcasting, right? But how can we get our audience hooked and come back for more and really become our raving fans?
Well, it was a phenomena that I discovered really early on. So when we were doing our 3D print podcast, we were crazy. We did it 5 days a week when we started. So we were really like all in on it. We were going to give it a year and we were going to go as many episodes as we could. And we were just going to give it our all. And so we hit 100 episodes pretty quickly, right? And
Yeah.
so about 100 episodes in, we would start to get messages and emails and direct messages on Facebook and from people who were saying, I'm listening to your podcast and I'm 27 episodes in, and I'm really hoping you're going to answer this question by the time I get to 100. And they would ask us the question. And so because we were always soliciting and saying, ask us
Oh.
anything, right? And so they would reach out and they would ask that. And I would be like, someone listened to 27 episodes in a row over the weekend? Like, that's the way they worded it. And I thought, this is insane. Who does that? And so it started to realize that there was this phenomena where you didn't get as tired listening as you do viewing, reading, right? It doesn't tire you out. You can listen and do other things and you can absorb the information in a different way. So listening has a much better binge factor than any other media type. Also because all of the other applications, like the channels that are serving you videos or, serving you other things, with the exception of a blog that's on your own site. But even most of the news magazines or any kind of the blogging platforms, they're all serving you other things, other articles, other people's videos, other people's feeds, right? Like that's what TikTok is, just like everybody all jumbled together. And the algorithm's working to that. So what they're trying to do is get you to binge in their platform, but not binge on a single channel or a single piece of content. They're not trying to get you into that. And so that's where podcasting's ecosystem helps. It keeps you deep into a single person, a single channel. And because I subscribe, it's pushed to me. And
Yeah.
that's the benefit of it. And that's really where we see just this difference. It's less distracting. So it gives people an opportunity to binge in a better way.
That's so true. Yeah, I never thought about that. Because I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts every single day. When I'm doing when I'm traveling or doing house chores, right? I listen to podcasts because I don't want to waste my time. And you are so true, because if we're just watching a YouTube channel, like we have to be there.
And even if we're just, even if we're trying to listen, the captions are distracting us. Like I find that turning the captions on actually makes me absorb less on the video than I think I do. And
Right.
that's it, because I'm not listening. I'm not watching facial expressions. I'm watching the words. So
Yeah.
I've learned to turn them off for my own personal learning style, but
Mm.
not a lot of people do. And so now we get fatigue really quickly watching a video, especially a long form video.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I don't know. Spotify, they just roll out like video podcasts. You can actually watch a video on their platform.
I don't think it's working very well. Like
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the numbers that we see behind the scenes, I don't think that it's actually working, because I don't think the people who subscribe to Podetize, to Podetize, to my
Yeah.
company, to Spotify, I don't think the people who are members of Spotify, like heavy users of it, are using it as a video platform. It's just not what they're thinking of when they first joined. So
Yeah.
they don't really have the video watchers on their platform right now.
Yeah. I think they're just trying to compete. It's like all these social media giants, they are trying to compete with one another. Because when we think about video, if you want to watch a video, the first place we go is YouTube, right?
I think video on YouTube is much smarter in the way that they're doing it now. I don't think it always was. I think what they realize is if they want to really create that rabbit hole of content, they have to do a higher relevance factor in the how they serve content up to you. Where TikTok, Instagram, all of those are trending. They're based on what's trending. So in YouTube today, if I put out a short from our interview here and as my promotion piece,
Yeah.
and then I link to your content, which isn't on my channel, that's on your channel, and I link out to it, YouTube's going to give me a lot of credit for that, because I'm sharing something, the long form version of the short version, and I'm driving traffic places. So they'll listen more, they'll watch more, they're going to funnel through that. And then after that, they're going to serve up another video. And if you're smart in what you do when you put out your YouTube video, you then add an info card at the really end, an end card that says, here's if you liked this interview with Tracy, you're going to love this interview with so and so. And you're
Yeah.
sending them through it in a logical way that
Mm.
makes them receptive to what's next. So
Mm.
all of our media is so interrupting, right? We haven't even consumed a whole video before the next thing's being fed to us. But
Yeah.
if we wait till the end of the podcast, the end of the video, and then we say, here's what you would benefit the most from next, we're now really receptive to that. And YouTube's figured that out in a really good way. And they're creating this more, I'm going to call it meandering through their
Mm.
platform, which is actually going to do much better for all of us who are posting our content that way. But also, I believe it's going to actually make a lot more money for YouTube in the end of the day in the ads that they're running.
For sure. Yeah, you're so right, because every time I just went there, thinking that I'm just gonna watch one video, but I ended up spending hours on YouTube watching a bunch
It's
of videos.
it's a rabbit hole, right? Like that's what happens.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's fine, it's information that I wanted to learn, right? So totally fine. So there's so many contents out there today. It's overwhelming, to be honest, right? Whether it's on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, everywhere. So how do we create a piece of content that stands out on social media?
So standing out on social media, in fact, we just had a debate. I have like a great team of people who are always conversing and always discussing about what to do. And they were talking about what do we have to do to go viral?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the question. And I
Mm,
think that's the problem. If we're chasing viral,
mm,
it's temporary, it's fleeting. Something else is going to replace that. Someone's going to get better at it. Someone's going to tap into it better. Someone's going to willing to put in a lot more hours
yeah.
studying the hashtags that are trending. Like somebody's willing to do that to gain the system, not necessarily create amazing content. So
Mm,
I'm a better fan of the idea of a sustainable growth platform where it's truly in your expertise area, you're an authority in it, or you're building yourself up to an authority in it. When I started podcasting about 3D printing, we had just gotten a 3D printer 6 months earlier. It's not like I wasn't an expert in design and development. I was, but in the 3D printer, I wasn't. In fact, I'm the non techie in the group. So to me, it was like, what should we make? And they were all about like, here's how you make it. And so we were learning but our experience was growing at a fast pace because we were experimenting along the way. So
mm.
that's an okay place too. So you do not have to be the authority from the beginning, but you might need to be the learner, right? And if you're just a few steps ahead of your audience learning, they're going to value that because that's an authentic experience you're sharing with them. So those are the ways that we want to see. We want to see steady growth over time and we want it to be sustainable. And more importantly, just like getting a client, it is really hard to get a new client. It costs you a lot of time, a lot of energy, maybe a lot of money. But once you get that client, keeping them is
Mm.
where the most value lies. And it's the same thing with our listeners, with our viewers, with our social media followers. If we can get them to consume more of what we're putting out there because it's deeply niched, it's deeply valuable, it's growing for where they want to go next, what they want to learn next. If we're staying in that value point, we're going to have an easier time keeping them from being distracted elsewhere.
Right.
That's where the value lies.
Yeah, in marketing, we always talk about add value, just keep adding value and you will succeed, you will make a profitable business. But still a lot of people are struggling with marketing. They don't know how marketing works and they follow all these guru advice and they failed miserably. So what would you say? Why do so many people they follow these gurus advice and still unable to, I would say, succeed with
So
marketing?
there's two things that I like to talk about here. One is it's simple. You talked about this at the beginning. It's a consistency.
Mm,
So if you're not going to be consistent and constant with whatever marketing you're doing, so if you're not marketing every single day or every single week, whatever you're setting out, you're not consistent about that, it's never going to work because all algorithms, everything in marketing is algorithmically driven. It's all driven off of you showing up at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays and doing this thing.
mm,
And the more consistent you are with it, whether it's blogging, video production, podcasting, showing up and doing a live stream on LinkedIn, it
yeah.
doesn't matter what it is. But if you post consistently and constantly in whatever that is, it will reward you. And so that's where also it rewards more. So when I did 5 days a week, that's why I could get to 100,000 listeners in 5 months. It
Wow.
worked because of that. But most people aren't willing to put in the consistent and constant work. That's the differentiator right there. If you can do that, now you have another problem, which is that a lot of these gurus out there are selling you something else. So
Mm,
they're selling you something and they're keeping out the important part. So look, I think there's some brilliance out there in the marketing world. I know people out there who just love Gary Vee and love some of these gurus out there in the marketing space. I'm not a fan because they can do anything new and it builds on a platform that's already strong. But if you're starting your business and your platform isn't strong and you try this tactic, it's not going to work. You've got to strengthen that platform on a consistent and constant basis. Do that and then try these tactics on top of it.
mm.
But, when people started podcasting, they were coming off of blogging. This was the big thing in like I would say 2010 to 2014, right around that time period. There were bloggers who were moving to podcasting.
Interesting.
And they were very successful because they used the same principles they learned over in blogging. And they had a list of people who would read what they had, who would now going, yeah, I'll listen because that's less effort than reading. I'll totally do that. And I'm going to get more value because it's going to be longer than a 800,000 word blog, right? So they realized they were going to get more value, more personality, and it was going to be better networking and connection point. So that's where they moved. So now they had an email list, they had blog followers, and now they added podcasting, and that sound connection, the energy, all of those things just built on that and grew them even more. And the space wasn't that crowded back then, and it was easier to build an audience. There wasn't as many podcasters. And then we move into, and they go from there to video. Then they go from there to the next thing, and to TikTok and shorts on YouTube. And so they just keep adding these layers of things, which is just keeping their platform and their audience growing. But the one thing they never changed is who their audience is. It's always been focused in the same place, because if they had to change that, they'd have to start all over again.
Here's the thing. I always tell my listeners as well, my clients, like all these gurus out there, not say that they are wrong or what, right? I mean, they know what they are doing, obviously, but they have a team, they have ad budgets, they have an email list, for example, a huge one, right? But if you are just starting out, you don't have all these things. You don't have a team to leverage. You don't have an ad budget. So whatever tactics or strategies they're teaching you, yes, it works for them, but it doesn't work for you because you don't have all these things. So what would you say is for someone who is listening and they're just starting out, maybe it's in their first year or 6 months, they're new to this whole online marketing world, and they're trying to build their business. What would you tell them to do? Like, what is the number one advice you would give to new entrepreneurs?
So this is what I did when I started my first show.
Right.
I was unwilling to invest in any of these gurus. I was not willing to join Podcasters Paradise with John Lee Dumas or any of those places. I wasn't willing to pay the money to do it, not because I didn't have the funds, but because I didn't want one perspective, because I didn't know if that was going to be valuable to me. So in the early days, when we don't have a lot of money, we need to consume a variety of perspectives and understand where the missing pieces are. So I went out there and I listened to, I researched for 3 months, 90 days I spent. And I listened to 5 or 6 podcasts a day who were teaching podcasting, basically. I would read their blogs, I would watch their videos, and then some of them I would send over to my partner and say, hey, here's this tech thing. I don't want to learn how to figure out how to learn a mixer. So you go do that part, at least participate and do that part. So there were some things I subbed out that I didn't want to do. But in general, and then I read some books, because if you took the time to put it into a book, back then it was not as many AI books written. So it wasn't as quick to run a book back then. So I read the books and I would say, where is the gap? And that's where I discovered that the gap was, if I did it 5 days a week, I would win no matter what. Okay. That's where I figured that out. Not one of those people that I read said that, but I watched what they were doing, and I started to map it. And because I observed a pattern happening over multiple people, I was able to better grasp that. This is what I try to share to my client base, to the live streams that I do every week. When I'm teaching podcasting and teaching marketing for podcasting, what I'm trying to point out is these patterns that you might be missing. Because I've personally helped clients launch over 1,050 shows. That's what we hit this past month. So we see what worked and what didn't work in a better way. We see where the pitfalls lie. We see a pattern of a style that tends to make people stick to it and not pod fade. We have over I think it's at this point, 85% success rate. Less than 15% of our clients quit their shows, and they last more than 50 episodes. So that's a real win for us, knowing that we built something that at least has a year's worth of longevity for them. Honestly, we have probably on average about 3 years with many of our clients. And so the understanding then, what are those success factors? What are the things that are going to work? That's something I can share. So I can say, yeah, I'm out there, I'm trying this YouTube shorts thing, but here's what I'm finding isn't working. Here's what I am finding is working. I don't like to share it until I'm starting to see a pattern of things. That's just my difference in what I come out to. But if you're going to have to do this yourself, you're going to have to put the time in, you're going to have to put the research in, and you're going to have to find the patterns for yourself.
yeah, you got to test it, right? You got to test the strategy. Whatever that you learn, you don't just learn, but you have to put in the work and take action and actually see whether it works for you or it doesn't work for you. So you mentioned about podcasting 5 days in a week. Is this still something that you would tell people to do right now? Is this how, because you see now you're talking about, I know, like maybe a few years ago, right, that you started your first podcast and you posted 5 days a week. It was the reason why you succeeded in podcasting. But in today's podcasting landscape, there's so many out there, not really a lot as compared to YouTube channels, but there's still quite a lot more than 5 years ago, right? So is it still gonna work, like posting 5 days a week?
So I'm going to say, unless your strategy is to earn your revenue from
Mm.
ads, then you should never post 5 days a week. But if your strategy is to do it with ads and sponsors, more is more. More downloads is more downloads. Like the math is just there.
Mm.
And so, because for every subscriber you have, every episode downloads. For every single subscriber I have over the course of the month, I would have 20 episodes. That's 20 downloads per person, per subscriber, right? It's 20 X's. If everybody else is doing 4, I'm doing 5 times more easily, right?
Right.
So it's just so much easier to do that model. But if you're not going to make your money off of ads, you're making the money off your audience,
Mm.
then I would say, like in other words, I'm inviting my audience to come and consume my courses and buy my books and buy my stuff and
Yeah.
hire me as a consultant, right? To do those things. If that's where it is, too much content is too much content. They can't absorb it. You're fire hosing them.
Mm.
And that's not going to be in your favor to do that. That's where you dial in, do 1 to 2 days a week. I have some that do different styles. Like you might do you can do a couple of days a week. If you do one being like a kind of a 10-minute topic, 10-minute short, and then maybe one's an interview. And so you can run some things where you're creating a variety of content for them to consume that is easy to absorb, but you're not overwhelming them with 5 episodes a week that are an hour long or anything like that, right? So that's where it is. If you are also, your strategy is to make money off your guests. So in other words, if you're creating a lead generation podcast where I invite you on my show because I think you're my ideal client
Yep.
and I want to interview you to build a relationship, then you need more shows. Because if I only interviewed 4 people a month, that's not enough revenue. So
Yeah.
in that case, you do need more, but the point of the calls are the calls and recordings, not the output at the other side.
Yeah. It all goes down to what is your strategy, right? What is your strategy with podcasting?
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of people they don't know about this. Like they just start a podcast thinking, and a lot of people think the only way to monetize a podcast is through sponsorship and deals. No, there are so many ways you can monetize, which is
That's less than 1% of podcasts make enough money, and less than 2% of podcasts even qualify to make money from advertisements. So
Mm.
it's not going to happen. It's just not worth it. So we need to focus on the ways that makes you money. But I mean, the reality is, if I calculated based on my listeners and the numbers and whatever, I could probably make off of my show $600 a month, which is pretty high. Actually, most people will make about $60.
Yeah.
Right. And like not much. So I could make about $600 a month off my show, which would pay for the production of my show.
Yeah.
Great. Like that's valuable, but I'd be selling my audience out for doing that. And I'm not going to do that. Not when I could not advertise to them and I could just serve them and then offer them an invitation to have a phone call with me or my team and become a client. I'll make $15,000 off of a weekly episode. Like
Yeah.
it's way more valuable if you look at it as a lead generation for your business and a part of that model.
Exactly. I love that model because that's what I'm actually doing as well for my podcast. I love that model. It's a lead generation, right? Yeah. So, okay, you obviously know a lot about podcasting and you are the expert. So, as a seasoned podcaster, where do you see us going? Like, what do you think will be the future for podcasting?
So I think it's really interesting, but it's cycling back to again being a blog, which we talked about before. Like lots of bloggers came into podcasting, then went into video casting, but now we're coming back to blogging again. And I'm seeing that as a big growth factor. And the reason is because if I don't reduce my spoken word and my videos to the written word, then I can't be a thought leader in an AI world. So artificial intelligence still today cares about what you actually write down from what you said.
Really?
And
Okay.
so, yeah, and it's locked into YouTube, even though YouTube does have captions and transcriptions and over there, but it's only searchable within YouTube. It's not spilling out into the rest of the internet. And it's not spilling out into being a thought leader in AI's eyes. So I have over 3,000 episodes that I have done, and every single one of them are a blog. So if you want my advice, you can get it. You can ask AI, what does Tracy think about this? Now, some of them will go, we're not allowed to check that. Like, that you're not at the right level, but it's going to be there. And that means that my voice will be heard because I get through the bot gate before you do. I think that's the real power of what you're creating in your platform is coming back to being platform based in your home base. I consider your website your home base. And if you're not bringing your videos, your podcasts, and your blogs right back into that home base, you're not the owner of it. TikTok is,
Yeah.
YouTube is. You need to be the owner of everything you've ever said and done. It needs to be searchable, because then when someone truly wants to know what I think, they have a place they can go and find it all.
But of course, first they have to know who you are, right? So this is where branding comes in, right? You have to build a strong brand, and so that people actually know who you are and go and search for your name, right?
Well,
So
so Joanne, I want to say that's the mistake people think about marketing. They think that marketing is branding, and they're not the same thing, right? Marketing is getting people who don't know you yet to find you. Branding is I'm putting out a curated perception of how I would like to be seen in the world.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean that you see me that way. Even though I put that out there, branding is still your perception of, is that valuable or not my perception of, is that valuable, right? Even though I put it out that way, it's still, at the end of the day, it's in the listeners, the viewers, the consumer's eyes. And so we do have to remember that our brand is only that, it's perceptive.
yeah. But it's all about, yeah, like you said, it's all about crafting, curated. It's all about creating your own personal brand so that you being perceived as an authority in what you want to be known for, right? So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, this is gold. I'm learning so much from you. Thank you so much for coming to our show today. Is there anything else that you really want to talk about? Perhaps I didn't ask you or didn't let you.
Well, I appreciate that question, because it is so great to be able to share with any audience. Look, I'm a big fan of getting started. We don't know what's really going to work for our brand. Sometimes we don't know who our audience is yet.
Yeah.
I call that hypothesis marketing. Hypothesis marketing means I think that my audience is X. If I message them and try to sell them Y, they'll be interested, right? Like, and that's what I need to do. But I have to test that. And when it's not working, I don't abandon everything. I
Mm.
just keep refinessing it. And so if you can find a marketing method that allows you to experiment, and that's why I love podcasting, because it's so flexible. Because today I can say my show is called this, and tomorrow I can call it something else altogether. And it's okay. My audience just comes with me or just unsubscribes. Like, it's no big deal, right? It's flexible. If you can do that, then you can take a hypothesis and refine it over time and say, oh, my audience really was different than I thought. When we started that 3D print podcast, we thought our audience was going to be, honestly, a bunch of 14-year-old boys in the garage playing with 3D printers. Instead, we found engineers in the Midwest, teachers in San Diego. Like, we found them all over, all ages, being really interested. And really, they didn't want what we had to sell. They wanted more information. They wanted more content from us. So at the end of the day, the podcast became the power that they wanted from us, not our courses, not our tools, not our services. Like, they didn't want any of that. They wanted more information from us. They found us really good curators. So we quickly found where we fit. And you could find that too, because what you think you have to sell might not be the most valuable thing to your audience.
Exactly. I love that. That's the mistake that a lot of people are making right now. They are working so hard, creating a course, creating a product, a service, and then they're trying to market it. But again, no one is buying because it's not what they want from you, right? So actually, research is key, right? For everything we do. Do a call with your ideal clients and ask them, hey, what do you need help right now? What do you want to buy, right? What are you struggling with? And really talk to them.
Yeah, it's product market fit is
Yeah.
what it's called, right? And the hardest part of product market fit, and it's 54% of startup failures is because the product wasn't right for the market, or you didn't have access to the market for the product that you have. And so it was a mismatch. And
Mhm.
when we look at that, we say it is so much easier to find out if I have access to the right market and what they want than it is to build a product and then pay to market to people who I now have to get their attention.
So many, tips that you have given us today. Thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours, and I can't wait to speak with you again another time. And now tell my listeners if they want to learn more about you or explore working with your team, where is the best place to find you?
So my company is Podetize, but here's the thing. I don't want you to go sign up with my company. I want you to go to the Binge Factor and listen to success stories. And I'm going to have Joanne on the show. So we're going to have a wonderful interview, and we're going to be able to share her show, and we're going to collab and share this interview and her show together. So we're going to get more circulation for both our shows. I want that kind of collaboration. That's what we do with our success stories on the Binge Factor. But I run a live stream every single week, which is my coaching call for my clients. And I share it with everyone on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube. We're everywhere. And we share that through Podcasters United, which is a nonprofit, so that we can get out to more people. So Feed Your Brand is what we're actually recording there. It's another podcast, and it's being recorded live in this nonprofit group so more people can consume it for free.
Wow, that is so cool. Yeah, everything that you're doing is so exciting, and it's adding value to the industry. Thank you so much for all that you do. Even though it's non-profit, but you're just helping so many people out there. So, all right, guys, I know you learned a lot from today's episode, and I know you love it because you are still listening, right? You wouldn't be listening to the end of the show if you didn't like it. So, if you have any question at all, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can always leave a comment below, and we will get back to you. And I'll put all Tracy's link in the show note below, so make sure you go and check it out and follow her and thank her for coming to our show today. And also, don't forget to let us know what is your biggest takeaway. All right. If you want to meet me and my guests and my community, just hang out with us. I am hosting a virtual podcast party every once or twice a month. That's where we as a community come together and help each other on a specific topic. So the link is also in the show note below. So make sure you go and check it out and RSVP, and I hope to see you there. All right. And until next time, keep showing up. Success start and show up for you until you show up and pursue your own success. Hi there, thanks for listening today, and I would love to meet you at our virtual dinner party. Once or twice a month, we come together as a community in a safe and empowering environment to help and support one another in our entrepreneurship journey. So what is a virtual dinner party? A VDP is not a networking event, it's not a teach event, and it's not a webinar where you don't get to talk. I want you to imagine the VDP being a cross between a mastermind, speed dating, and a Tony Robbins event. And most importantly, there is nothing for sale. My goal for you in attending our VDP is to help you build real confidence, gain more visibility for yourself, and build a deeper connection within our community. What is the catch? There isn't one. If you're a coach, consultant, entrepreneur, or podcaster, come and join us for a truly unique and world-class experience. And there is a choice of dates and times for you to attend. To RSVP, just send me a DM on Facebook with the word VDP now.